Who am I? So I'm Dr. Cynthia Romero. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a wife, I'm a friend, a colleague, a mentor, advisor, a fierce health advocate, and a cheerleader. I feel like I have been blessed in so many ways to be the individual that I am today, particularly because of who my parents are. And I'm proud to be a Filipino American that has the opportunity to touch so many lives, to improve lives, health-wise, but also relationship and support-wise, and to make life better with everyone that I have the privilege to know. My childhood, a very happy time. I am the youngest of 3 children, so I had the opportunity of learning from experiences that my sister and brother went through, but growing up in a family where my parents were born in the Philippines, and then with my father as a part of the U.S. Navy, and then with my mom having completed her medical school training in the Philippines, for them to be married in the Philippines and then to come to the United States and to have us. My childhood was filled with really opportunities to learn about assimilating into the American culture, but also learning about our identity and our roots coming from the Philippines. So as we all had the opportunity, my brother, sister, and I had the opportunity to interact with other Filipino Americans our age, and also following the example of our parents, we grew up together, going through all these identity, opportunities, learning who we were as Americans, but also as Filipinos, and hence Filipino Americans. So we learned a lot about not just the language and the culture of respecting our elders, academic excellence, but also learning the Filipino dances. And so much of my childhood was involved with other Filipino children, learning from our aunties and uncles and godparents and my parents about the Filipino dances, and actually performing those dances for the community at large, whether it was at a festival like the Neptune Festival in Virginia Beach, or the Azalea Festival in Norfolk, or even at like William and Mary for one of their culture days. We would travel wherever we were invited, and we were so proud to share who we were as Filipino Americans, but also felt very blessed because also with both my parents, but particularly my dad, very invested in and just established with the Catholic Church. I grew up in a very spiritual family where we not only followed all the traditions of Catholicism with the feast days and the masses, but also with the mindset of valuing every life and appreciating the opportunities that we have because we were put on earth for a reason. So I feel like my childhood was very positive and enjoyable because I really had the opportunity to learn from observing challenges that came from everyone before me, whether it was my brother and sister or others around. And the fact that I got so much support from my parents, I think they were tired after having to guide and follow up on my sister as the eldest child, and then my brother as the son. I was the youngest, where I was really allowed to do a lot of things that I could do and think of doing without having any limitations. And so I just look back on my childhood and remember so many great things because of my family, because of my Filipino American friends and the traditions there, and then also being rooted in church and feeling like my Christian values, really helped drive me forward to have the mindset to want to serve. In the Filipino culture, pageants and kind of having beauty queen, celebrations is really a huge part of our Filipino culture. And when our Filipino American community really followed the traditions of the Philippines and really wanted to preserve the culture here in Hampton Roads, one of the big visions they had was to have a building where families could meet, socialize, support each other, but more importantly to preserve and share our Filipino culture, not only with the next generations of Filipino Americans, but with the community at large. And one of the primary fundraisers for this effort were beauty pageants. And so different organizations, different Filipino organizations, had their specific pageant that they focused on. So my mom, through the Filipino American Veterans of Hampton Roads, when my dad was president, actually started a Little Miss Philippines. But that was only after the Filipino Women's Club of Tidewater, which is the oldest Filipino American organization here in Hampton Roads, which was established in 1964. The Women's Club actually started a Miss Philippines of Virginia pageant. And then our Council of United Filipino Organizations of Tidewater started a Mrs. Philippines. So you could immediately see there's a Mrs. Philippines, a Miss Philippines, and a Little Miss. Well, my sister was really one of the first Miss Philippines of Virginia back in 1980-81. And a few years later, I was asked to run for Miss Philippines so that we could fundraise to benefit this building fund to help build our Philippine Cultural Center of Virginia. So when my sister had ran, and the first iteration of the pageant, it was really focused 100% on fundraising, so the individual who raised the most funds would garner the crown and the title for a year. Well, by the time I ran, the pageant was revamped, and it included not just fundraising, it included academics, it included poise and personality, it included a gown competition. So gown competition and talent, oh my goodness. So I ended up participating in this pageant, and fortunately I was able to win the fundraising category, I won the academic category, and I won the poise and personality. But I am not shy to say that I did not win the talent, and I did not win the gown, because clearly my competitors had a little bit more talent and were able to really display their gowns very elegantly to win those categories. But I will the talent, I'll just share the talent, because I really had multiple abilities. I couldn't choose just one element, so I combined all three. So I started with a karate demonstration where I had, my white uniform for karate. I took Chuck Norris karate, and so I started with my white, uniform, and I was able to do a pretty high level kata, which I thought was kind of cool, but apparently that just probably didn't garner the attention as everybody else wanted. But I started with that, and then I turned around and I took off my white uniform, and I had this kind of ballet tutu, but I casually and what I thought was slyly picked up these wings. So it was a ability where I was trying to showcase my my grace and my ballerina type of talent, which again was like a waltz. And then after a few seconds of doing that, I again turned back around and I pulled off a piece of my ballet uniform, and I ended up having this patriotic like flag display of red, white, and blue, and I ended with like this jazz number, celebrating that I was American as well. So again, even though I was proud of my multi-talented display, It didn't quite compete with the singing and the other musical talents of my competitors. But for a year in 1985, as a senior in high school, I was proud to bear the title of Miss Philippines, Virginia. And I had a beautiful crown. I had my sash and a scepter, and I was invited to many different parades, again, across the region. And anytime there was an opportunity to attend a social function or to help with charitable activities, to help not only our Filipino community, but our community at large, I was proud to say that I was Miss Philippines, Virginia, 1985. One of the events that had occurred in my life early on was the opportunity to go back to the Philippines when I was only 14 years old. And again, being the third child, being in that awkward tween type of age, and I had braces and buck teeth and curls in my hair, but really had the opportunity to go back to the Philippines and visit family members of both my mom and dad's side, but also to appreciate the culture that my family is rooted in, and to also understand that by and large, compared to the life I was living here in the States, that the poor status of the country as a whole, and even parts of my family, was really different than what I was exposed to, and realized that if my parents had not sacrificed and chose to come to the United States, that I could have been raised and grew up in the Philippines and possibly could have been in an environment where I didn't have the resources and support that I knew I had, even at age 14. And for me at the time, I remember having a pretty big suitcase that we were allowed to bring, and I brought everything with me because I wanted to bring my stuff. And as a 14-year-old, I had my 2 pairs of K-Swisses, I had my Izod and everything Izod, from skirts to shirts to blazers, which we didn't really use over there, socks and belts and earrings and purses. I had everything. But during our month there in the Philippines, realizing how all that I had in material goods, I knew that when I would come back here to the States, I could simply acquire more. Whereas many of my cousins, especially those who were living in kind of the rural province areas, many of them really were limited with only a couple of pairs of shoes or slippers, or a couple of pairs of nice outfits. And it made me realize that everything that I had and I valued within my suitcase was like gold to them. So what I ended up doing, and with the permission of my parents, I pretty much left 90% of my things there. I left the extra shoes that I brought with me. I definitely left a lot of my my Izod shirts and socks, and everything that I knew that I could get more of back here, I left for my cousins. And I remember sitting on the plane, back then they didn't have as much concerns about security, but I was able to see my cousins and my family on the tarmac, or from the tarmac, and I just remember thinking, with God's help, I'm going to be able to come back and help them, not just with material goods, but I already had the sense of wanting to become a physician and to want to come back and to help my family and really my country. So I would say that experience alone as a 14-year-old, I think truly helped shape me to not only want to not focus on myself, not focus on material goods, but rather what are skills and resources that I can gain so that I in turn can help other people. So one of the most major challenges that I can think of now would be the loss of my mom. And with again, with me being the youngest of the 3 kids, I feel like I had the freedom to really explore myself, to explore my abilities, and to try different things without limitations or without concern about what other people would say, or having to try to meet anybody's expectations except my own. And looking back and realizing that a lot of that was because of my mom and dad and how they raised me, and in fact raised all of us, but particularly with me, how they supported me and encouraged me to do just that, and simply to just do it, try it, see how it goes, and if it isn't successful, that's okay. But with my mom in particular, as a role model for me, as a young teenager, and then certainly as a college student, as a medical student, as a resident, as a physician in practice, I feel so incredibly grateful that I had someone like her who was not only my mom, but she was my mentor, she was my guide, and she was my supporter every step along the way. And for her to be there at 2 in the morning when I was a resident in training family medicine, and waking up and being called to the emergency department and being upset, and for me to be able to call my mom and say, at 2 a.m., sorry to wake you, Mom, but I'm so frustrated because all my other friends that are not residents in family medicine are asleep, or they're partying and doing all these other things, and gosh, what am I doing? And for my mom, again, even though I just woke her, for her to have the wisdom enough, to listen, but also to actually say, are you done? And then to say, Cyn, just remember, the person that you are being called to see in the emergency room needs you. They don't need your friends. They don't need anybody else. They need you. And you need to learn how to take care of them so that you can make mistakes, but certainly learn how you can take better care of other people in the future. So breathe, remember why you're there, and focus on the patient, because they're going to tell you how you can help them. And that was just an example. And then when I joined her in practice, for me to be in practice with her, and to at first learn from her, because she had been seeing patients for almost 20 years, and as we were in practice together for over 16 years, for over that time period, for her to begin learning from me, learning about technology, learning about some of the newer medications, learning about community health and policy, and for her to introduce me to her colleagues so that I could learn about policy. Again, she was my guide and my support. And when she got sick, again, best patient, or best family physician, just not the best patient, when she suffered from multiple strokes, and we had the opportunity to care for her for 9 years. For me to feel that gratitude and to tell her how much I appreciate what she did for me and how she shaped who I am, and to let her know that I was going to miss her, I don't think I realized how much I really was until she was gone. And even today, even though it's been almost, oh my gosh, now it's been almost 5 years this April, again, not a day goes by that I don't think of her. Not a day goes by that when someone calls me Dr. Romero, that I don't think of my mom first and think they're looking for her. And not a day goes by that I don't thank her in my prayers and thank her for giving birth to me and helping shape the person I am today. So, a life lesson I would like to share with seasoned women is just do it. Just do it is a mantra that, again, I learned from my mom and dad. But when it comes to your health and wellness, just do it. Just do it as far as learning, what you might be at risk for. Just do it in terms of asking, additional information from those you trust about what you can be doing to be as healthy and well as possible. Just do it in terms of following the advice of those who've been there, done that, especially if they've fought, cardiovascular disease, if they've fought cancer, if they've fought, distrust within a healthcare delivery system. Learn from some of the suggestions that they offer, which is, get your blood test for screening, get your mammogram or, pelvic exam to be evaluated, get the follow-up that you need if there's anything abnormal, and stick with it if there's treatment that is needed. And just do it in terms of if you feel that sense of wanting to connect with a friend, to spend time with a family member, to send an email, text, or have a phone call with someone. If you have that gut feeling, follow it and simply just do it.